All right, what's up, everybody? It's good to see you back here again. We'll just do a quick audio check. So if you guys can hear us, and if we are streaming in 1080p, just go ahead and give us a thumbs up in the chat, and we will get started here momentarily. It's a very windy night yet again in New York. As I'm sitting down here by the GM building, I'm just getting absolutely cold by the wind. That's all right. It's all right. We'll get started in a moment. Thanks, everyone. All right, what do you say we get this started? So, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Walks and Wall Street. Today is Monday, April 22nd, 2024. It's about 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time, and we are reporting live directly outside of the GM building. And if we point the camera a little bit further to the right, that is the flagship Apple store here on 5th Avenue, and then even further is the Sherry Netherland Hotel. But this beautiful, iconic building right here is the Plaza. Now, it was a beautiful day in the city, really, really nice weather, but as always, the wind is starting to pick up, and it's pretty steady tonight. So hopefully the wind, or I should say hopefully the microphone does a pretty good job with keeping out a lot of that wind noise. I want to wish all of our Jewish listeners a very happy Passover. Today is Monday, so happy Passover for all of those who celebrate. But we're going to jump right into things here. As we talked about last night on our Markets to Look Ahead live stream, we were really looking for at least some sort of a rally going into Monday. It looks like that's what we got today, but we closed a little bit weak. If you look at the S&P 500, the Dow, and the NASDAQ, closing mid-range, well off of its highs, but there were a few things that were rather encouraging. Number one, we had the VIX come down quite materially. So if you go to the CBOE Volatility Index, I think we hit an intraday high on the VIX of about 23, I think, on Friday. I believe we're about at 15 or 16, I think. My internet's acting up, so I can't really check. But the VIX came down materially today. We had a broad-based rally across the board, but things closed mid-range. However, I want you to keep in mind the specific sectors that held up the best. So if you take a look at the XLE, which is the ticker symbol for the ETF that tracks the energy sector, energy performed well, oil and gas names perform well, but also the XLF. So the XLF is the ticker symbol for the financial sector. If you think about Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and the like, Wells Fargo, those are just some of the holdings in the XLF, and that performed really, really well again today, following through Friday, which kind of makes sense, right? Because as we've covered right here on the live broadcast, by and large, earnings at major banks in the United States have been pretty positive, been pretty healthy. Yeah, there were some sore spots, but the overall pickup in activity on Wall Street as it relates to investment banking, mergers and acquisitions, IPOs, all of that stuff, has been picking up quite materially. Not to sound like a broken record, but I think it's important. Goldman Sachs, we covered their earnings report in depth last week. They reported their highest investment banking revenue in Q1 since 2021, which makes sense because 2021 was a massive year for deal making on Wall Street. 2022 happened, interest rates went up, the IPO market went to zero pretty much. There was no deals being done. Investment banking revenues across the board went down. You're starting to see that pick up, which is very good. Jamie Dimon voiced that same narrative. Bank of America, Brian Moynihan voiced that same narrative with deal flow picking up on Wall Street. So it's no surprise that the financial sector performed quite good today. But also, we had more follow through in utilities. So this market is still a little bit on the fritz. I think we're still in this correction, but as we move sideways here, hopefully we chop around and we let this earnings seasons pass through. That's my hope. A few major names that are going to be reporting this week, massive names, one of which being Microsoft, ticker symbol MSFT. It is the largest stock in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and they will be reporting earnings on Thursday. We're going to be doing a deep dive into that report Thursday, so do not miss the stream. Also later this week, we're going to get some GDP estimates out, or I should say the GDP numbers out for the first quarter. That's also going to be very, very important to pay attention to. Also, if you think about General Electric, so the GE ticker gets its first real show-off as the pure-play GE Aerospace, ticker symbol GE, when it reports early Thursday. Now, analysts point to a triple-digit EPS or earnings per share gain on an 11% rise in sales or revenue. The stock is up 48% this year alone, holding up relatively well between a dicey market that is well off the highs. S&P 500 is about 5% off the all-time record high. And the energy spinoff, ticker symbol GEV, reports on April 25th. And then GE Healthcare, which is that other spinoff, ticker symbol GEHC, reports on April 30th. So, lots going on. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and close up the laptop here. I'll say hello to everybody in the chat, and we will get this stream started. Just as a quick reminder, this Thursday, yes, this Thursday, we will be sending out our next issue of the Behind the Street newsletter, which is our free investing newsletter we send out to all of our Walks and Wall Street subscribers every other Thursday right as the market is closing. You do not want to miss it. So if you type !news, N-E-W-S in the chat, the Nightbot will drop the link to our Substack. We publish every other Thursday, or you could go ahead and scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, and you will be rest assured. You will get that email on Thursday. All right, give me a minute and then we'll get started. Thanks, everybody. Man, it's cold out. My fingers feel like they're getting a little bit of frostbite. It's almost May. Think about that. Almost May. At least it was 60 degrees today. Anyway. All right, let's see who we got. Let me say hello to everybody. Samar, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. I see No Mikey, Juan, Shannon, Victor C, NMB 45, Stealth FX. Always a pleasure to see you here. I have Joseph Hardaway. Michael is here. Lance, Lilla, DC322. What's going on? Thanks for joining us, everybody. Alan, Dario's here from Argentina. Welcome to all of our viewers from abroad. Now these are really cool kind of portals into the underworld here. This is the Apple Store. They have all these mushroom looking things, right? But you can actually look into them and see all of the people shopping, buying iPhones and Apple Vision Pros at 10 o'clock at night. Pretty cool. They're actually doing some work on the elevator here. So there was scaffolding all encompassing this big cube for a little while. Andrew says, I'll be in New York City in September and I can't wait. We're happy to have you. It's going to be fantastic. Steph UF says, loved the Miami video today. Oh, I'm so glad you liked it. Yeah, today we posted a video essentially touring one of my favorite neighborhoods in all of Miami, Florida, which is Brickell Key. Now, for those of you who do not know what Brickell Key is, it's essentially a man-made island right off downtown Miami and Brickell. And it's fantastic. It's amazing. It's right on the water. There's this absolutely spectacular sort of walking and running path that goes around the entire diameter of the island. You have the Mandarin Oriental Hotel over there. It's just a spectacular place. So if you want to see a full 1 hour walking tour in 4K, 60 frames a second, check it out. It's an awesome place. A Collector's Dreams says, good evening, Tom. Great weather today in Miami. Super jealous. Although it was kind of nice in New York today. It was like 60 degrees. It felt really nice. Patrick D, what's up? Michael says, GE will be excellent. You know, there's this really, one of my good buddies, Jim Osman. You should follow him on Twitter. I retweet a lot of his stuff. Really successful money manager on Wall Street, and he really kind of laid out this GE turnaround from the beginning. Because GE, I mean, let's just be honest, I mean, that stock was an absolute dog. But now that they're kind of breaking up these individual businesses so they can focus in on expertise, you know, they've had a pretty major turnaround. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, could you guys imagine, well, not even imagine, it's kind of happening right before our eyes, the resurgence of one of America's greatest companies ever, General Electric, right? Really crazy. Hey, everything in Miami is here. It says, can you ride a bike around Brickell Key? I don't think so. When I was there about last week, they had all these signs up, no scooters, no skateboards, no nothing, which I kind of get it because the sidewalks are quite narrow, and I think if they allowed bikes, you would have tons of tourists kind of coming on that island and disrupting people because it's really private. I mean, there's security, 24/7 security. It's quite nice. Now check this building out, guys. This is 432 Park. It's looking absolutely stunning tonight. The developer on this deal is Harry Macalo. But look at this. You guys see all the lights on at the top? I think Donald Trump is home. I mean, could I stand corrected? I think Trump is home in his duplex penthouse all the way at the top of Trump Tower. I think we're looking at him right now. That's kind of cool. I don't know if he's home, but that's his apartment. He has the top 2 floors. If you ever watched the Celebrity Apprentice, they do I forget what season it was, but they have done a full tour of his apartment up there. Anyway, Rick C says he is home. Damn, I wonder what that view looks like from all the way up there. You have an unobstructed Central Park view, but you also get the Plaza Hotel in there. So imagine looking down on the Plaza, this beautiful building just off to our right. You know, if I lived up in one of those penthouses, here's what I'd do. I would do a 365-day time lapse overlooking Central Park, so you would be able to see all of the foliage, all the leaves falling off the trees, snow blanketing Central Park, and then the full bloom again. So if anybody, you know, lives in one of these beautiful towers surrounding Central Park, consider doing that. I think it'd be an awesome video. Anyway, so I guess we'll jump right into this, everybody. For those of you who are just joining, there was a little bit of a rally day today on Wall Street, but breath was lacking, I don't want to say in a major way, but we need to be paying very, very close attention here in this correction, right? Because assuming that this is just a correction in a larger cyclical bull market, this is going to allow us unbelievable opportunities to get back in the names that we missed once they start building out their bases again. Hold on one second. So whenever the market falls into a correction, I like to look for the following things. I like to pay very, very close attention to the stocks that are going down less, if not bucking the overall trend of the market and going up when the general market is going down, right? Pay very, very close attention to that. And you could even hammer it down into a sector focus, right? So let's say if you were very long semiconductors, right, in this bull market, chances are you made a lot of money. Congratulations. Pay close attention to the individual stocks within that sector that are going down less, right? So this is just an example. I don't know if this is true, but if AMD is getting sold off more than, let's say, an NVIDIA or an Intel, you really got to track that, because the institutions, they try to hide out in different names, and the quality, they try to let go of as little amount of the quality as possible, right? So that's number one. And number two, pay very close attention on things that are being rotated into. And today, you had the XLF. Hold that thought. This is the Amman, New York. So for those of you who don't know, this is the corner of East 57th Street and 5th Avenue. This is pretty much the very beginning of New York City's Billionaires Row. And this building, which is gorgeous, by the way, is the brand new Amman, New York. This is one of the most luxurious hotels, not only in New York City, but the world. And I believe room rates start at about $1,200 a night. Looks cool. And I almost totally forgot to point this out, because we're actually going to talk about LVMH here in a moment. They reported earnings last week. We forgot to talk about it. This is the Tiffany flagship on 5th Avenue, okay? LVMH acquired Tiffany, and when they acquired the company, they put about $500 million worth of renovations, so $500 million into this building right here, and I think they did a spectacular job. The entire top floor, I believe, is a restaurant and a lounge and a bar. And I love how all the windows are backlit with that really nice blue. We'll talk about LVMH Moet Hennessy in a minute. But so in general today, XLF did really well, which makes sense, right? Because a lot of the financial earnings were great. Bank of America reported a good quarter. JP Morgan Chase reported a good quarter. Goldman Sachs had a lights out quarter. So after that shake, I think the market is kind of coming back to reality, saying, all right, the financial sector is healthy. Investment banking is coming back. Deal flow is coming back on the street. Deals are getting done. So we had money rotate there. Oil and gas is doing good too. The XLE, ticker symbol XLE, which is the energy sector, also caught a bid today, but well off of its highs for the day. And then last but not least, which is a little bit concerning, you had utilities. And usually when you have utilities doing good, that means it's a little bit of a crummy market. So those were the three standouts, in my view, today. Austin City Limits, thank you for joining us. We are now directly outside of Trump Tower. You can see the main clock here. Joy, what's up? Sunshine after rain. Sally, good to see you. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is Manhattan was working class at one point. Still is. I mean, Manhattan's a pretty big place. Very, very big place. Now, Trump Tower is actually open to the public from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And if you walk straight through these doors and out the very, very back, you'll reach the atrium. It's actually quite a nice place. Laura M says, greetings, Tom, and happy Monday. What's going on? NBA Elias is joining us. Welcome, everyone. Now, does anybody remember over the weekend? I believe this was Saturday. We kind of had that, funny conversation out of the blue about there was some data that came out that shows Gen Z and millennials are really not consuming alcohol like previous generations, like boomers and the like. Remember that? So I was at my desk. I had like 30 minutes to an hour of like downtime. So I was like, meh, all right. I'll replay the LVMH earnings call, take some notes, and go through the slide deck. I forgot to put it in the Nightbot, by the way, but if you just go to LVMH Moet Hennessy's website, I would really, really suggest downloading that deck that they presented on April 18th. And it's going to break down all of the specific sectors of the business of LVMH, line item by line item. And does anyone want to guess, as we're looking at Trump Tower and 432 Park? Wow, look at all the Secret Service cars lined up around there. Now, does anybody want to guess what part of the business showed revenue decline? It was the only part of the business. Now, think about the big umbrella of LVMH, and if you guys had to guess which segment of the business had revenue decline, what would you guess? Man, the barricades go all the way down here. Maybe there's going to be some big protest. Interesting. Yeah, it was the wine and spirits division. Was the only division that had revenue decline. Kind of interesting, right? This beautiful building with those magnificent stained glass windows, this used to be Frederick Fekkai, I believe, was the place. It was like a beauty place, a salon, and they had a little plaque on the third floor here giving a little bit of a synopsis about those stained glass windows. I think the windows alone are worth like $3 to $5 million, something crazy. But it is a beautiful building. And then if you look just off to the right, you could see the spire of the Steinway Tower. 111 West 57th Street. That's the skinniest residential apartment building in the entire world. Hey, John is here. Cynthia Ava, this is Tom. They are currently marching through the streets protesting. Awesome. Very cool. But yeah, I just thought I'd point that out. Now, if we dig a little bit deeper, and I'm going to dive into this even more in depth in the newsletter, but LVMH had a pretty good quarter. Revenue was great. The gross margin was great. Earnings were great. And this really goes to show and kind of piggybacks off the conversation we were having last night about how the upper class is doing really well and better than they've ever done, right? So you may read in the news, right, about all of this stuff about how, the economy is so bad, things are terrible, but if you look at the earnings of some of these companies, who is driving the consumer spending, right? We always get these consumer spending numbers out and everybody's like, whoa, that's crazy. How are people doing it? Whoa. It was almost a little fender bender there. But we get all these consumer spending data out, and everybody is always surprised when they come in better than expected. But we can point to the top 10% of not only Americans, but globally. They are spending like crazy, and it shows up in the earnings report of these luxury brands such as LVMH. Really, really good quarter. And it looks like the stock's going to break out into another 52-week high. This is the Peninsula Hotel here. Richard B., good to see you. Tariq Khan says, guess. Yeah. Good to see you, Tariq. This is the St. Regis Hotel. It's right next door to the Peninsula, but you also have the Polo Bar too, which is really nice. Joseph says, good evening, Tom. What's up, Joseph? Welcome to New York City's Fifth Avenue. We're happy to have you here. Peninsula, New York. What a beauty. Now, if you're visiting New York City, and even though, let's say if you don't stay at the Peninsula, if it's around the holidays, you've got to go inside the Peninsula and check out the lobby that's decorated for the holidays. It's unbelievable. It's a really, really fantastic place. And you should also check out the New York Palace as well. Really, really great hotels. Now, for some more confirmation bias here and data about how well the wealthy are doing in America and abroad, I have some friends that work at some of the, I would say, most luxurious hotels like the Park Hyatt, and I always, keep in touch, text them every once in a while, and they have near 100% occupancy at the Park Hyatt in New York City. Things have been very, very busy, and these hotels are upwards of $850 to $1,000 a night. No surprise that Hyatt, Hilton, Hyatt, ticker symbol H, Hilton, ticker symbol HLT. Hospitality, hotel stocks were one of the leading sectors in the bull. On the corner of West 54th Street, this is the University Club. Look at how amazing it looks in there. You have these absolutely stunning crown moldings on the ceiling. Looks very, very similar to how the New York Public Library looks. And right off to our right, we have the Mandarin Oriental Residences, New York. So if you're familiar with the Mandarin Oriental hotel brand, they just completed residential condos right on the corner of 5th Avenue and West 54th Street. It's a beautiful building too. I love how they didn't go with the, glass encased facade. They made it really heavy brick and mortar, which fits very, very well to the architectural integrity of 5th Avenue in general. So I'm really glad that they did that. Kyle says, Tom, not watching the Knicks playoff game. Not a big hockey fan. No, I don't really like hockey. On 53rd Street, we're going to make a right. Ahmed, what's up? Thanks for joining. Wow, look at this. When you stand across the street, the facades look so much better. So you have 3 retail storefronts here. You have Coach, DJI. The facades look so clean, like so crisp. Julian says Knicks is basketball. I know, I'm just busting balls a little bit. But in all seriousness, I would like to go to a Knicks game. I live in the city of New York, but I never take advantage of any of the sporting events, which sucks. So I really should. I really, really should. To the right is St. Thomas Church, and then I want to point out a notable building here, but St. Thomas Church is awesome. Love the architectural integrity here too. But there's this glass skyscraper right next to St. Patrick's Cathedral. Now, we've talked about this many times, but we do have a lot of new viewers here. It's called the Olympic Tower. And it's this big black building right here. You guys see it? Olympic Tower, right next to the St. Patrick's Cathedral. Now, way back in the day, in New York specifically, tried and true New Yorkers, right, born and bred New Yorkers, hated Midtown for a living. They didn't really want to live in Midtown. They would much rather live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, the Upper West Side of Manhattan, in these beautiful townhomes or in these co-ops up there. And when international buyers and international business people came to New York City, it was very, very difficult for them to gain exposure to the New York City real estate market. And that's because co-ops, even though they say that they don't discriminate, they do discriminate in a major, major way. And back in the day, a lot of these co-op boards did not want foreign buyers in their building. They only wanted Americans. They wanted American money. So developers and real estate entrepreneurs noticed this trend, that there was a huge wave of demand for essentially foreign investors to buy New York City real estate, but there was really no way for them to gain exposure because they were locked out, because a lot of the co-op boards would say, nope, we don't want you, right? So this building right here, Olympic Tower, was one of the first kind of ritzy, glitzy luxury condos or condominiums to be built in Midtown Manhattan. And a lot of people thought that it wouldn't do well or it wouldn't sell well at all. And it achieved a complete sellout. It sold really, really well. The views were spectacular. And the vast majority of the clientele were foreigners. And I think that's really what kicked off, or what many people in the real estate business say, kicked off this mega trend of luxury condos in Midtown Manhattan, right? In and around 50th Street all the way to 42nd Street, is to accommodate that foreign money coming into New York. And now, the market's kind of flipped itself on its head, because everybody now wants condos with amenities. Now, the Olympic Tower was built, I think, in the 70s, so it doesn't have many amenities. It has a very, very teeny tiny gym, but the views are spectacular. If you want to know a little bit more about it, and I always recommend this book, but again, we do have, a lot of new viewers here. There's a fantastic book that was written by one of the most well-renowned real estate journalists in the world. Her name is Catherine Clark. She works for the Wall Street Journal. Oh, look at this. This is the old Versace store. And it looks like they're going to do a total renovation on the inside. Look at that. But the book is called Billionaires Row by Catherine Clark. We'll take a mental note of that. We'll have to come back and see what they do. But yeah, it's right over here. The interesting thing about Olympic Tower is it'll pretty much always have its Empire State Building and Lower Manhattan views, because St. Patrick's Cathedral is right here, and there's no way this thing is ever moving. St. Patrick's Cathedral will be here forever. Sharon says, "Evening, Tom." What's up, Sharon? Thanks for joining us. So 641 Fifth Avenue, if you want to look up some of the apartments on Street Easy just to kind of see what they're like. A lot of them have really good views. Really cool Midtown Manhattan and Central Park views. Someone says, "Tom, why do hedge funds collapse? Is it greed or incompetence?" A lot of times a little bit of both. The hedge fund business is very difficult. Very, very, very difficult. There's kind of a false narrative. Everyone thinks, oh my gosh, if you work at a hedge fund or, you start a hedge fund, you're some mega wealthy, multi-billionaire. That's actually not the case. The vast majority of hedge funds fail. It's a tough, tough business. Even more so now that fee income has been so compressed, right? Traditionally, in the hedge fund business, they would run a 2 and 20. That's kind of the fee structure. So it would be a 2% per annum management fee, and that would essentially go to pay the bills, to turn on the lights, to pay for the office space, the lease, to pay your employees, your analysts, things like that. And then 20% would be 20% of the profits, if there was profits, right? It's very difficult in this environment due to obvious reasons, right? Index funds and very, very low-cost mutual funds, for the hedge fund business to really thrive and survive. Now, there are a lot of hedge funds that make a ton of money, Most of them run, very lucrative quant strategies and things like that. But if you're just a startup, right, a startup hedge fund is very, very difficult, because think about it like this, right? If you have an idea, you get a pitch packet ready, maybe you traded money on your own for 5 or 10 years and you have a good track record. You're going to shop your returns around to investors and say, hey, I have had, a verified track record. I made about 10% per annum. I want to come to you and say, invest in my fund. It's a 2% management fee, and then I'm going to take 20% of the profits, right? It's hard for people to, it's hard to get people to cough their money up to agree to something like that, because there's a lot of products on Wall Street now, like index funds, for example, that track the S&P 500, that are virtually no cost, right? I think Fidelity now has a product that's an S&P 500 index fund that gives you full exposure to the S&P 500 at zero cost. I mean, it's very difficult to compete with zero, right? So, the S&P 500 on average, right, if you go back to inception over the long run, right, through the bear markets, through the bull markets, the ups and the downs, it tends to return about 8 to 10% per annum, which is really good, at zero cost. So you can invest in someone's hedge fund, right, pay them 2 and 20, and the hedge fund may blow up and it may go to zero. So it's a very, very difficult business, very, very difficult. There's another really good book as we're overlooking the gorgeous Art Deco facade of Rockefeller Center. This is 30 Rock right here we're looking at. But there's a really good book called The Little Book of Common Sense Investing by Jack Bogle, or John Bogle. And John Bogle, unfortunately, he passed away. He was very old. But he was the founder of Vanguard. And Vanguard really pioneered indexing on Wall Street. Because John Bogle noticed that all the big Wall Street mutual funds and money managers and advisors were really fleecing all of their clients, if you think about it, through very, very aggressive and egregious fee structures. So back in the day, if you wanted to buy a mutual fund, right, you would pay like a 5% load fee on the front, 2% management fee, and then if you wanted to sell out, they would charge you 5% too. So Jack Bogle was like, what if we can create a product for the American public to be able to just own the broader market of the S&P 500 and charge them a very, very teeny tiny expense ratio. And that's kind of what really started this massive fee compression on Wall Street, right? So it's not kind of like what it was back in the day with commissions being so high and, fees being so high and everybody raking in the money just off of the management fees. It's a lot different. It's a lot different game now. David says, who is the best hedge fund manager in your opinion, and what does it take to be a good one? Well, just look at all the top performing hedge funds out there, right? I'd say Bridgewater, so that's Ray Dalio. If you're interested in like a quant strategy, I would say David Shaw, right, of D.E. Shaw. Ken Griffin, Citadel Securities. Julian Robertson, who created, and we were talking about this last night, the person who really invented hedge funds is a guy named Julian Robertson. Tiger Management, Tiger Global, right? And there's a lot of tiger cubs. So if you're not familiar with that, you could just Google or do some research on tiger cubs. Essentially, these are old traders and analysts that used to work for Julian Robertson. They broke off and they started their own very, very successful hedge funds. Bill Hwang is one that, unfortunately, I think he went to prison. Did he go to prison or did he not? Or did he get off? I don't know. But Chase Coleman is probably the most famous hedge fund manager that kind of graduated from Julian Robertson's upbringing, right? This is Saks Fifth Avenue. Now, if you go to the LVMH investor relations page and you download that earnings deck we were talking about before, they have this beautiful picture of the facade of Saks Fifth Avenue during the holidays. It's awesome. Really, really nice. Also, like Renaissance Technologies is very, very good. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams almost every day starting at 8:30 or 9. We'd love to have you along for the ride. We're walking down Fifth Avenue. Maybe we'll take a little bit of a pit stop and check out the 270 Park building. Might as well do that since we have the light. Yeah, oh, Wise House is Bogleheads. Yes, indeed. Speaking of Wall Street and bankers, this is 270 Park. It's going to be the new JP Morgan Chase building. You know, and with all this fee compression on Wall Street, that's another reason why you'll notice there's a big competition about just growing your AUM, or growing your assets under management. So the acronym AUM stands for Assets Under Management. Because now, let's say if you create a fund or an advisory or something like that, and you can charge a 1% per annum management fee, right? The goal is just to grow the AUM as much as possible, so you get a big check at the end of the year from the fee income, right? So the big round number that everybody usually wants to hit is $1 billion. $1 billion AUM. Empire State Building looks cool. It's lit up in green. I wonder why. Now, one of the interesting moves, well, I'll quickly point this out. We're now at the New York City Diamond District. You'll always know when we're at the Diamond District, when you see those two big diamond lamps, if you will. But an interesting move today is gold was materially lower. And to me, this kind of signals that this whole big, well, really is a war that's going on in the Middle East is not really going to escalate to the point where many people originally thought it was going to escalate, right? Many people thought, particularly once Israel retaliated against Iran, I even remember reading some of the chats on the live stream here. Everybody thought it was going to be, World War III and all this. Well, two things. The recent price action in crude is essentially telling us that it's not going to escalate to that extent. And also the big drop in really just precious metals today is kind of telling us that the market is expecting this thing to de-escalate, which is actually good, right, for humanity. Hey, Todd, what's up? Someone says, where are all the college protesters? They're in college. This isn't the college here. This is Midtown Manhattan. Ann S. This is green for Earth Day. Ah, yeah, you're right. Earth Day. Happy Earth Day, everybody. This is New York City's Diamond District. Now, it looks so much different during the day. At night, it's so quiet and so dark because everything is locked up, right? And they don't have anything on display. But during the day, this place is rocking. You have a bullion dealer and exchange to your right. And inside all of these places are individual boutiques that go all the way in the back. This is a really cool place to, just walk around, even if you're not going to buy anything. It's kind of cool. Let's check some of the prices, guys. Might as well. We're here. Am I right? Let's see, what do we got? Silver was down today. So platinum's at about 1,000. No, palladium's at about 1,000. Platinum is 913. Gold is 2298. So just a hair under 2,300. And silver's 26 bucks. Hey, TK Porsche, many colleges, including Columbia, have shut down on-campus classes due to the protesters. I know, it's insane, man. I don't really want to spur a big conversation about it, but I just don't understand it. I mean, looking at some of these people, right, that the media has been covering, it doesn't even seem like these people attend Columbia. I mean, look, I'm not that smart of a guy. I was never smart enough to get in any of these places, but the narrative that I was sold as a kid, right? If you go to an Ivy League institution, you're this preppy, buttoned up, super smart, super athletic, well-rounded. You got everything going for you. You were cut from a diamond cloth. I mean, some of these things I've been seeing on the news, they're showing this, encampment essentially at Columbia University. And this is just what I'm observing. It looks like a freaking homeless encampment. I mean, does it not? I mean, tell me if I'm being biased. I don't know. I don't have a bias here. But I was reading the Wall Street Journal today, and they had some video coverage of the main lawn at Columbia, and it looked like everybody was homeless. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like everybody was homeless. But, I mean, these people are apparently supposed to be, very highly pedigreed, and, everybody's got a lot of money, and I don't know. I didn't see one lacrosse stick in the entire place. When you think of Ivy League, like Princeton, Columbia, I envision like a campus where everybody's throwing around the lacrosse ball. There was not one lacrosse stick in the entire place. And I could smell the video through my computer screen. That's how horrible it was. So I don't know. I think that this could potentially be a very, very small group of nefarious actors that are trying to cause disruption. I don't think it's the lion's share of the people there. It just can't be, because how do they get in that place? If you watch some of the videos, right, some of the chants and the behavior is so mind-numbing and so low IQ, you would never in a million years think that that's the pedigree of an Ivy League candidate. At least in my eyes, right? At least comparing it to the narrative that I was sold, in high school, like, get good grades, get the best at SAT, the best ACT scores, and you too could, get into Cornell or, Princeton, Yale, Columbia. These people don't look anything like that. Maybe it's just a stereotype. I don't know. But I support everybody's right to protest. I think that's fundamental. But when it's on a campus and when you're intimidating other students, making them feel uncomfortable, threatening them, how is anybody getting anything done? How is anybody going to learn? This is supposed to be a learning conducive environment. And to me, it looks like chaos. It looks like a homeless encampment. That's what it looks like to me. So That's kind of where I see where it draws the line. But again, Columbia is a private institution. They're going to have to deal with it, right? It's not the NYPD's job. The NYPD can't go on the campus and police things. It's a private campus. So, I don't know. If I was running the school, I'd say, look, you have a right to protest, but you don't have a right to pitch tents like it's a homeless encampment and disrupt students, right? People are paying $60,000, $70,000 a year to go to the school, and they have to walk through what appears to be a homeless encampment on the way to their school. That's insane. I mean, at least for me, that's insane. How are you going to focus on your studies? How are you going to focus on, networking and building relationships with your fellow students if it's chaos? That's the problem. Anyway, that's my piece on it. Ooh, look at this, guys. The spire of one Vanderbilt is not green, it's blue for whatever reason. Hey, Dane, it's his first time in New York City. I love it here. Watched your videos to help plan the areas. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for watching. I'm glad you had a great time in New York. And hopefully you can come back this summer, because my prediction, and I've predicted this multiple times on the live stream. Well, let me cross here. My prediction for New York City in the summer of 2024, this is going to be the most touristed. Is that a word, touristed? If it's not, well, let's make it a word. I think this is going to be the most traveled and touristed summer in New York City's history. I could feel it. I think the hotels are going to be at almost 100% occupancy. The restaurants are going to be booming. It's going to be a really, really fun summer to be in New York City. That's my prediction. Oh, cool. Dane says you stayed at the Sheraton Times Square. That's a nice hotel. So that's Times Square North, I believe. So you were a little bit further north from the BNP Paribas and the Barclays Investment Bank. It's a really nice area there. You have you have a 6-block straight shot to Carnegie Hall in Central Park. It's a nice area. So glad you had a good time. Okay, everybody. Now, speaking of the XLF, the financial sector, that caught a really nice bid today after banner earnings on Wall Street, this is the Bank of America Tower. This place is really cool. Miss Winfrey's has never been in New York City, but have always wanted to visit. Come on down. I'm telling you, this summer is going to be fantastic. You're really, really going to enjoy New York. NAV 407. This is Agree About New York City Touristing. TK Porsche, Fidelity Investments. It's your brokerage. Yeah, Fido is great. Fidelity, one of the things that I respect about Fidelity is they're very forward-looking, right? I believe they were one of the first core brokerages to really adopt a pure play strategy for cryptocurrency with Fidelity Digital Assets. I think Vanguard's making a really big mistake here with coming out and saying that they don't want to have any offerings to the Bitcoin ETFs or anything like that. Now, I don't think it's going to hurt their business, to be honest, but you always have to be forward-looking, right? Even though, your founder would have probably been against cryptocurrencies, you have to think about your clients' needs and your clients' wants moving forward. And by and large, as we're looking at this gorgeous shot of the Empire State Building, by and large, Gen Z and millennials like cryptocurrency. They want to have an allocation or an asset allocation of these assets. And, I think it's a big miss not to offer those products and services to your customers. It's my view. Noodle says, what do you think about ticker symbol VOO? Yeah, it's an ETF. It's just an S&P 500 Vanguard ETF that tracks the S&P 500. Now, you're just starting to see the leaves sprouting here on the trees at Bryant Park. Looks great. This is 42nd Street and 6th. You're looking directly into Times Square. NBA Elias, Tom, I would visit New York City in late October once schools are back in session. Don't want to be in New York City during the summer heat wave. That's the best time to be in New York City, man. The summer heat wave in New York is amazing. It's amazing. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but there's nothing better, and I think we talked about this on, look at this guy's guitar. That's a sick guitar. I love the shape of it. Who's that lead guitarist? Is it Slash, right? Something? Anyway, but there's nothing better than getting out of the office early on a Friday, walking around the city with some of your coworkers, going through Tribeca, going through Soho, the sun is setting, and the city is just electric. It's on fire on a very, very hot Friday evening in the summer, July, August. This is Bryant Park. It's closed, but you'll still have really good views. You can see the main fountain here at Bryant Park, and in the distance you have the Stephen Schwarzman building, the New York Public Library, the spire of Chrysler Building, and then the spire of One Vanderbilt. EMV says, there are any real-world use for these cryptos, though? I can understand why traders like crypto given the speculative nature of them. Besides that, what is the real use case? Yeah, I think there's a lot of use cases. Now, for me, I've always had an allocation to Bitcoin because it is the only true unconfiscatable asset in the world that exists, right? That is in finite supply. There'll only ever be 21 million. We just had the halving, by the way, which we wrote about in our investing newsletter. If you guys want to read a little bit about the Bitcoin halving, you could scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, and that's our Substack. I'm actually going to be sending out our next issue this Thursday. But with Bitcoin, you have finite supply, it's unconfiscatable, it's immutable, and it's permissionless. So to have an allocation, right, and this isn't advice, I don't care if you hate it, I don't care if you buy it or sell it, I don't care. But let's say if you have an allocation of 5 to 10% to something that is, number one, unconfiscatable, and number two, permissionless, I see personally a lot of value in that. Now maybe you don't, and that's fine, but I do. To send a medium of transaction across borders without any permission, right? Jamie Dimon doesn't have to approve your wire transfer and say, oh, interrogate you why you're transferring money. You could send $1 billion worth of Bitcoin halfway around the world in 30 minutes for less than $10, right? So you have a permissionless money transfer, finite supply, sound money, but it's digital. It has all of the properties of gold, but it has unconfiscatable parameters, which is great. And if you look at a lot of these bank earnings reports, by the way, which we just did a deep dive into pretty much all of them. You'll notice how on checking accounts, they pretty much pay you no interest. So there's really no reason now for people to, and this is kind of making an argument for digital transactions in a digital world, right? For people to really leave money in checking accounts. And that's why what you're seeing right now with BlackRock, and we've been covering this, BlackRock essentially wants to tokenize the US dollar, right? To make a tokenized US dollar that is automatically invested in a basket of treasuries, which has all the liquidity you need, so you can have instant settlement. Right, so imagine this, right? Okay. Imagine paying for like a candy bar or a cup of coffee with Apple Pay. Okay. But all of your money, right, is in this virtual US dollar sort of money market account that can easily be converted back into US dollars, so instant liquidity, but it's earning interest. So right now in a money market, it's like 5.5%. Because interest rates are high now, 5.5%. So one of the projects that BlackRock is working on is sort of an instant conversion from this US dollar token that accrues interest. So there would essentially be really no reason for anybody to have a traditional checking account. If anything, you pay the bank to keep your money in the bank now. At least I do, right? In my Chase checking, I think it's like $10 a month or something is the surcharge. So I envision a world where everything is digital, everything. I think in my lifetime, by the time I'm 80 years old, I believe that there will not be any physical dollars or coins in existence. Now, that may sound crazy, and I may be wrong. But if you look back throughout history, right, and there's actually a really good book, we've recommended it a bunch of times. It's called The Bitcoin Standard. Now, I would still advise you to read it even if you don't care about Bitcoin, because the first half of the book has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's just a complete guide and a complete history of payments and money going back to the beginning of time when people bartered with each other, right? And so things are always constantly changing, in perpetuity forever. So to think that by the time I'm 80, we will be living in a world where there will be no physical bills and coins, I could totally see that. I mean, just ask yourself, the viewer here, right? How often do you physically go to the bank, inside a physical bank branch, and get paper bills? For me, it's never. For my friends in my kind of age range, right, under 30, it's never. Nobody ever uses cash. It's Apple Pay, it's Samsung Pay, you tap, swipe your credit card. So that's kind of the world I'm seeing. What do you think? Any disagreements, agreements? Ken Brockton says online banks have no fees, pay high yield interest, and offer full services. Yeah, for some reasons I don't, I have a Charles Schwab checking account, but, well, I'm not going to say I'm not a fan, but I have one. I have a Schwab checking account. And yes, you're correct, there's no physical branches. It's kind of like what Goldman Sachs was trying to do, which they're shutting down that part of the business with Marcus by Goldman Sachs. No, but you're correct. You're 100% correct. David G says we need cash. Eddie says I never use cash. Yogi says I go often. I like having cash. Vegas One says I haven't used cash in years. New England Crypto says the last time I took out money out of the bank in person, they asked me what I was going to do with it. Gross. That's a little crazy. Someone says, how will people who can't afford phones pay for things? What do you mean? How is someone that can't afford phones pay for things? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but homeless people in New York City have cell phones. And I'm not saying that to sound funny. Like, I actually know homeless people. Like, I've been seeing these people since I've been, like, in college. I had a homeless guy that's actually I've befriended. His name is Jesus. Used to live right at Columbus Circle. He had a phone and he would have a whole setup watching Netflix. You can get a phone for like 10, little bootleg smartphone from Walmart for like $40. AUS Fly Girl says, but for tipping, you definitely need cash sometimes. It's a good point. Neighbor Bob says you can't hack a $20 bill. Well, you can counterfeit it into oblivion, and that's a big problem. That's why a lot of people walk around. If you ever go to a restaurant and somebody pays with a $100 bill, the waitress or the waiter will go in the back and they're drawing on it with a little counterfeit pen. That's another good thing about digital currencies or virtual currencies. You can't counterfeit them. Sam Allen versus Tom, how do you hold your Bitcoin? I have it, let's say, displaced in multiple ways. Paper wallet, I know I'm throwing it all the way back. I have paper wallets, hardware wallets, but all of my Bitcoin is offline in cold storage. Ken Brockton says many merchants have credit card surcharges. I sometimes carry cash to avoid those. You know, that's true. I mean, to Ken Brockton's point, like, this is something I will say is a big problem. I do see restaurants, particularly in New York City, increasing their prices to offset those credit card surcharges to consumers. And they are crazy, right? That's why a lot of times if you're buying something in New York, they'll tell you, oh, it's a $10 minimum, a $20 minimum. Even though that's illegal technically, you're not allowed to have minimums on things. It's to avoid those credit card surcharges. So Ken Brockton makes actually a pretty good point. That's a problem. And they continue to go up. That's why, you know, I was about to say NVIDIA. Oh my God. That's why like Visa and MasterCard have really been surefire bets. I mean, look at the price appreciation of the share price of Visa over the last 15 years. It's pretty much up and to the right. Now, speaking of tips, right? Does anybody think the tipping culture in the United States is getting a tad bit out of hand, a little bit out of hand? So I think it's getting out of hand for the following reason. And I don't really see this too much in New York, but it's everywhere in Miami. You go into a restaurant, right? You buy your food, all this stuff, and the waitress or the waiter comes over and they give you the bill. And they don't tell you that they automatically put 18% on your bill, right? So a lot of times I'll just automatically add like a 20% tip, but I've been noticing like, whoa, that's like a really, really high price. And then I look and I audit the bill and they say 18% gratuity included, right? But they still have the areas for additional tips, but they purposely don't tell you that they've already included the tip, so they could sometimes bang you twice for the tip. I think that's a little unethical, but I don't know. Has anybody else seen that, or is that just me? I've seen that like 3 or 4 times now. Nako says 20% is the new low. Yeah. Omar says the iPad definitely changed the game too. Laura says they want you to tip $2 on a $7 Starbucks coffee. Nick says, Tom, as long as there is organized crime, there will be cash. That's a good point. It's a really good point. Tricon says it's definitely out of hand. David G says yes, and it's BS. Old Wise Owl says delivery and sit down. Starving Artist says if you need to pay a contractor for work on your house, you need a check. Small contractors don't have debit card machines. Wow, I didn't know that. I don't know. I feel like I've done Apple Pay before. NBA Elias is, yes, I saw that yesterday, Tom. Reminds me of congestion pricing. It's really, I mean, now how many people, I got caught, I don't want to call it a scam, I think that's too overdoing it, but I've definitely probably tipped like $70 for a dinner, that means sometimes. So watch out, if you ever go to Miami, it's a great place, but almost all the restaurants build in an 18% gratuity, and then they don't tell you about, you know, the extra tip. Now, when this guy did my driveway, I had to redo my driveway, it looked horrible. I paid him on my phone, Apple Pay to Apple Pay on the iMessage. So I literally texted him the money, which is crazy to think about, but it's true. All right, well, here we are, Herald Square at the Macy's. If you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams almost every day starting at 8:30. Forex says we don't have a tipping culture here in the UK. Oh, that's right, you guys don't do tips in the UK. Interesting. The LT Prods is more competition for tips than ever. Natalie says one girl gave us an attitude because 18% already included and we tipped 2% extra. I guess she expected 38%. Yeah, it's crazy. It's wild. A US Fly Girl says, if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. Anderson says, neither in Brazil. Anderson, what's going on? Trust you're well. We had a little bit of recovery rally today in energy and financials. The XLF rallied. NBA Alliance says, Tom, there's no tipping in France. It's already included in the price. Peters says, if you do away with cash, how will you contribute to panhandlers or homeless? I mean, that's another thing. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of homeless people in the city that have little Venmo QR codes. And, you know, maybe in the long term that'd be good because a lot of times, particularly in the city, you know, they use the money to buy drugs and not like food and things like that. Hey, what's up, Lee? Good to see you. Oh, I think the Knicks game is just getting out, right? Now, Thursday, everybody, is going to be a big day. Oh, yeah, the Knicks game is getting out. Look at these guys. Should we dare walk towards... Oh, my God, no. Look at the stampede. It'll be cool to see everybody with the Knicks jerseys on, though. But as I was going to say, you know, this Thursday is going to be a very big day on Wall Street. We are going to hear from the largest company in the Dow. We're going to hear from Microsoft, ticker symbol MSFT. And I think the main part of the earnings report that we're really going to hone in on and talk about is the cloud computing segment, Microsoft Azure. I think that's going to set the tone and the precedent for tech earnings. And we're going to do a deep dive into Microsoft's earnings on Thursday. Now, the stock was down about 3% last week, right, as the market fell into correction. So hopefully if we get a really, what I like to call a rip your face off, blow it out of the water earnings report, Maybe that could be the thing that kind of puts a floor under this market. But I fully expect kind of us to chop around and go sideways through the rest of the spring, and then at the tail end of summer, that would be a perfect scenario to let earnings catch up to price and rip rally into the fall and the winter. Look at everybody getting out of the game. People are walking over to the 33rd Street PATH train entrance to head back to New Jersey, Hoboken, New Jersey. Now, for the New Yorkers in the chat, I have a question for you guys, by the way. So I was stopped by this gentleman in the West Village, and he was asking me where the PATH train was. He said there was a PATH train entrance on 9th Street. I never heard about that in my life. And he showed me on Google Maps, and rest assured, on Google Maps, it shows that there is a PATH train entrance on 9th Street. And I was looking around for it, I couldn't find it, but apparently on Google Maps it says that. I mean, I'm not familiar with almost never take the PATH, but is that true? I never knew there was a 9th Street PATH train entrance. Anyway, I guess it doesn't matter, but what do you say? Oh, we're going to the finals. Is that true? New York Knicks? Wow, if that's true, New York City is going to be rocking. I don't know anything about basketball, but I'm always happy to see the New York teams do good. You know, that kind of reminds me, it's been a while, right, since New York sports teams have done well. I mean, when's the last time the Yankees were in the World Series? I feel like the city is that much more electric when the Yankees are in the World Series, or, you know, the Rangers are in the Stanley Cup. Someone says, long way to go. Someone says, Tom, to date, what's the most expensive private residence ever sold in New York City? I probably should know that answer, right? Being that that's what I do for a living now. I'm not too sure. I want to say it's that one at Central Park Tower, that for $110 million, but I actually don't know. Or it may have been the package deal at 220 Central Park South, but that's technically two residences split. I'm curious about that. Maybe somebody could Google that. I actually don't know. I would assume it's probably maybe the $110 million deal at Central Park Tower or the combined deal at 220 Central Park South. It's probably either of those, I'd say. We'll try to loop around towards Penn Station. Yeah, Jeff in Southern Tier, New York. I want to say that's it, but those were two combined residences. Somebody says, was it the $500 million place? No, so there was a listing for $250 million at Central Park Tower. But that didn't sell, and they slashed the price to about $195 million. The duplex that sits right below the triplex at Central Park Tower just sold for, I think, $110 million. And the team who did that deal is the Eklund Gomes team. So if you ever watch that show, $1 Million Listing New York, Frederick Eklund, that's the team who did that deal. Hey, hang with Mark Mom. Good to see you. Happy Monday. I'm sure you're excited and gearing up for Microsoft to report on Thursday. Man, the spire of the Empire looks fantastic tonight. Now, for a time, I think Bill Ackman used to hold the record for that, which was one of the top floors at 157, or 157 West 57th Street. Let's head towards the Hudson Yards. Actually, I think we're going to buffer if we go that way. I remember that from last time. We'll try to navigate up and around to go to the Hudson Yards. Look at that husky. We'll buy some time until all the Knicks fans head out. We'll take a lap through Koreatown. TK Porsche sometimes. I would say sometimes. I mean, there's been deals that I've done where I've represented the buyer and the seller. So for example, when I sold that apartment on 23rd Street, I technically worked for the developer, right? So Colonnade Group, Stefano Frisora, but I also brought the buyer, right? So it's dual agency is common. But you're correct, we do not have an MLS here. Hey, Chris Tompkins, thank you so much for your very generous $5 donation. Says, what's your favorite steak in New York City and how much is it? Favorite steak? You know what? I'm gonna go with Del Frisco's for the whole experience of it. Right now, there's better steaks that you can get than Del Frisco's, but I think if you're looking for the whole package, like the environment, the atmosphere, you know, the fun, I think that's kind of what makes a dining experience. It's not only how good the food is. Like, I would take an 8.5 steak with a 10 out of 10 atmosphere than a 10 out of 10 steak with an 8.5 atmosphere, if that makes sense. So the Del Frisco's, right there, adjacent Radio City Music Hall, it's the best. It's the best place. It's so fun, and I was just there this Sunday. How much is it? I think you can get a ribeye there for $65. It's expensive, but you know, you're going out in New York City. But my favorite steak is New York strip steak. Here we are at Koreatown again. Robert's T-Bone. Now, if you want to talk about a business that has very, very low gross margins. It's by and large the restaurant business. It's a very, very tough industry. Really, really tough. There was a good Italian spot called Al Coro. It was a Michelin star restaurant, Chelsea Market area. And unfortunately it closed down. Wow, Chris Tompkins. Chris, you're extremely generous and kind. You definitely don't need to do that. Thank you so much for your very generous $100 donation. This is enjoy a steak on me and post a picture. Chris, I appreciate it. If you're ever in New York City, Chris, I'll take you to Del Frisco's on me. So I'll make sure when I get paid out via the YouTube AdSense, I'll put that in a little piggy bank. I'll have it accrue interest in a money market account. And if you ever come to New York, we'll blow it out at Del Frisco's on me. Appreciate you. Very, very kind. So if you're ever in New York, shoot me a text or an email, and we'll blow it out at Del Frisco's. Maybe we'll have maybe once we reach 100,000 subs in 2 years, I'll rent out the entire Del Frisco's and we could have just a whole Walks in Wall Street blowout. That's probably possible, by the way. Maybe we'll do that. Who knows? I'll keep a rain check on that. But thank you, Chris, for the support. Appreciate you very much. Neighbor Bob says, Tom, are there any streets in New York City that smell as good as some of the streets in New Orleans? I don't know, because I've never been in New Orleans. I would love to go, but unfortunately I'm not really that well traveled in the US. Tariq Khan says I'll fly in. Dude, I'm down. We'll do it. We'll do something fun. And I'll definitely, Chris, appreciate your support and your generosity. Hang with Mark Mom says that sounds fantastic. I'm game. Or we'll do something in Miami. Maybe we'll do something cool in Miami. All right, I got to plug the phone in. Give me 1 second. Man, the color scheme is so sick on the Empire tonight. Could you imagine living in that condo building right here? You have a direct view of the Empire. All right, let me plug this in so we don't conk out here. Back in action. Someone says, how do we send money? I don't see a way. You guys do not have to send me any money. Trust me. I appreciate it. You guys are very, very generous and kind, and I really do appreciate everybody here. But you do not have to send me any money. Please. But thank you for the support. I do appreciate it, and I value each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Let's head up, because I have to go to Penn Station anyway. We'll go to 34th Street, and then we'll head over to Penn. now that things are kind of clearing up here. Daytona Gal says, glad the guy that was tripping is okay. Oh, did we catch somebody tripping on camera? Oof, that stinks. See, the problem on New York City sidewalks is they're all discombobulated. So you'll see a lot of these sidewalk panels either have these big cracks in them or they're elevated, particularly around the trees. And if you're not paying attention, you could trip really easily. Another thing, for all the females in the chat, if you're walking around New York City and you wear like heels or something, you really need to pay attention when you're walking around kind of like the subway stations, because they have the subway grates. I'll see if I can find, I'll show you when we get closer to Penn Station. But the sidewalk turns into these like 2-inch wide subway grates, and I've seen so many people trip and fall like really badly around them. So you just watch out for that. If you see any signs for the subway, make sure you look down and you're not tripping on the subway grates if you're wearing like high heels or something. Jennifer said, have I seen any celebrities? Not really, honestly, but then again, I'm kind of oblivious to that. Some of you, the viewers, have, you know, posted in the chat that we've said we've walked past people. I think we walked past like a big an old rock band star. I forgot his name. Kevin Bacon, we walked past him right outside his house on the Upper West Side. That was a while ago. Who else? Oh, Ackman. I guess not a celebrity, but a big hedge fund manager. We walked past Bill Ackman and his wife. This was maybe almost a year ago now. But besides that, I don't think anybody else, honestly. I don't think so. Oh, you know who else we saw? Hugh Jackman. He was coming out of that. Last year he did a big Broadway performance. I forget what musical he was in, but he was coming out of there. I know, hang with Mark Mom, you have to. Hang with Mark Mom is like New York women wear sneakers in New York City. I know. Okay, here's like an example. So I mean, imagine getting caught in that. Like the whole sidewalk turns into that. You gotta watch it. Another thing to note, everybody, that we're gonna get here in a moment, well, this week, we're gonna get GDP numbers. So gross domestic product numbers in the United States for Q1. That should be a pretty interesting catalyst for the market. We are also gonna get the S&P manufacturing PMIs, as well as the S&P services PMIs. Again, we could use them as pretty appropriate leading economic indicators for the market, so we'll be covering that, and new home sales data. So along with this huge week of earnings, again, Microsoft is really the one that we're going to key into. We're going to get a lot of economic data and inflation data too, because remember, there's 9 days now until the next FOMC meeting. Who dat Dave? Hugh Jackman, the Music Man. You're right. You're right. Thank you for that. But I believe there's 9 days until the next FOMC meeting. So that means this is the Fed blackout phase. So the Federal Reserve can't say anything. We're not going to hear from any more Fed presidents until the FOMC meeting, the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, where our good friend Jerome Powell is going to give us a little bit of an update on monetary policy. If you look at the CME group, the Fed futures tool, it's pretty much 100% guaranteed we get no change in the Fed funds rate. And currently the Fed funds rate is in a range between 5.25% and 5.5%. Now, if you look out into the summer, it used to be a 50-50 shot that we would get a rate cut, but now it's almost no shot. So the narrative on Wall Street is really shifting to, is it possible that since we've been talking about all of these rate cuts, should we do a 180 and maybe talk about the possibility of a rate hike, being that inflation is sustained above that 2% target? I don't think we're getting any rate hikes. I just don't think we're gonna get any rate cuts until 2025, like Neil Kashkari said. What was that? I think that fell from the window. Something exploded over there. Anyway, Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari last week came out and said it's very possible we don't get rate cuts until 2025. Noodle says, Tom, have you heard of this Nancy Pelosi stock tracker on X? I think I have. Now, I believe the account is called Unusual Whales. Is that right? If you're on Twitter or X, there's an account called Unusual Whales that tracks the stock trades of people in Congress, which is hilarious. I mean, it's actually not funny, but I mean, it's kind of funny, right? So there's this X account that essentially goes and audits the congressmen and congresswomen who are actively trading in individual stocks and essentially like exposes them, right? I have mixed feelings on it, but I'm also like very dead set on, if you're in Congress, you're a public servant, right? You're supposed to be serving the public. So that should be your main focus. You shouldn't be dilly-dallying in individual stocks, right? Because you're making policy. I would say the most egregious trades was early last year, or excuse me, this was 2021, I think, when we were voting on a new bill for cybersecurity spending. And before the bill was passed, there was a select few congressmen and women on both sides of the aisle, both Democrat and Republican, that were speculating on call options, which are derivative products, on a select suite of cybersecurity companies, like Palo Alto Networks and the like. And guess what? About 2 weeks after they purchased these call options, they passed a bill that says we're going to increase government spending to fortify, you know, our networks and spend more money on cybersecurity and assign these big contracts to these cybersecurity companies like Palo Alto Networks and the like. I think that's really unethical. I don't think you should be able to do that. In my view, if you are a sitting, what do they call it? Sitting or standing? I don't know. If you're a member of Congress, you shouldn't be allowed to speculate in individual companies. You should be restricted to 4 times a year, once a quarter, right? Where you can add money to index funds, where you buy a broad basket of stocks, right? Like the S&P 500 or something like that. And you should only be able to do it about 4 times a year, which is actually very normal. If you work on Wall Street and you're actively in the securities markets, you can't just go ahead and trade your own personal account, right? Because that's a conflict of interest. You could be trading against your clients. So they have like blackout windows, which you can and can't do. It should be the same thing in Congress. Now, on the other hand, there's a lot of Congress people that buy individual stocks and they lose money, right? It's just we're so hyper-focused on the people who absolutely crush it and blow it out of the water, like Nancy Pelosi and a lot of others. Also, there's a lot of Republicans who do it too, right? I think Dan Crenshaw killed it last year in the markets. My whole thing is, look, I'm all for everybody getting rich. This is America. I think you should have the freedom to do whatever you want. But get rich in the private sector like everybody else, right? I kind of view the private sector as the big arena, right? This is the NFL. This is the NBA. So if you want to try to make it in the big leagues, go in the private sector like everybody else and make it. Don't, if you're going to take the route of public sector, right, and be a public servant, your goals and aspirations should not be lining your own pockets. It should be being a public servant, right? Representing your constituents. That's kind of my view. So, John says, when you're making policies and making 20% returns, yeah, it's definitely, I see it as a big conflict of interest, for sure. I agree. NBA Alliance is a classic case of corruption. Yep. Someone says Macy's credit card now has a 34% interest rate. Whew. Well, that's another thing we learned from bank earnings. Consumer credit is at all-time record highs, while interest rates are at record highs. This is one of these marijuana dispensaries. Now, to be fair, right, I always like to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I believe Nancy Pelosi's husband was a big player on Wall Street back in the day. So I think he was already way, way independently wealthy before any of the politician stuff with Nancy. So, you know, it definitely does help to be married to a, you know, Wall Street titan that knows what he's doing, I guess. But some of the private placement stuff, like in some of these IPOs, I think Nancy Pelosi was able to participate in the Visa IPO when she was in Congress. I think that's a little crazy. But for sure, yeah. All right, Penn Station, Long Island Railroad. Now, one of these days in the summer, I'm gonna have to take you guys up on the High Line. We haven't been on the High Line in a long time, probably about a year. I was up there today. I filmed a video, and it's beautiful up there. Christopher says, watch the Knicks crowd. The game was epic tonight. What was the score? You know, we're headed that way right now. We may start to buffer. This is a forewarning. There's usually a lot of buffering here anyway because of the people waiting for the train. There's a lot of congestion. Let's see. We'll kill two birds with one stone. We'll see all the Knicks traffic, and then you'll be able to see the brand new entrance of Madison Square Garden, which was developed by Vornado. This is the brand new Penn 2 project. And you can see all the Knicks fans out. Well, we'll give it a go. Hopefully the internet holds up. Wow, EMV says 104 to 101. Close game. Crazy close game. Crazy traffic here. Mark who? I didn't see that, no. All right, everybody, welcome to the brand new entrance of Penn Station. This is the Penn 2 project at the Long Island Railroad. Everyone's wearing their Knicks jerseys. Look at this guy's fur coat.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
I don't know how that guy's not sweating. That's a huge fur coat. Right, this is the new entrance to MSG. Look at this guy. This is a cool shot, guys. Look at that. Great view of the Empire. Noodles, this is 7th Avenue. Yeah, this is 7th. This is Rangers tomorrow. That's right, you're a big Rangers fan. Hawaii, next time you're in New York, I didn't know you were a huge Rangers fan, but I know a guy who has season tickets to the Rangers and he always hits me up for them. I'll pass them along to you if you're here. This guy has season tickets and he never goes. He always texts me. He's like, hey, you want to go to the game? I'm like, I can't. Tons of police out too, which is good. That's what you want to see. We have to go. You would love a Rangers game? I'm down. Next time you're in New York, let me know as always, and I can make it happen for sure. everybody's selling all these Knicks hats. I think that guy just dropped a bunch. All right, let's cross to the other side and we'll end at the Moynihan Train Hall. But you can see Madison Square Garden is all lit up in the Knicks colors. Are these the buses that the players get on? Is that what everybody's waiting for? Let's see. You guys know much more about basketball than me. It's possible, right? Looks like everybody's waiting for the players to get out. I thought that's what they do on the other side, because sometimes you'll see the Rangers pulling out.
Yo, Carolina is losing.
Cool. I think that's right. I think everybody may be waiting for the players to load on this bus here. Hey. My boss did a deal with one of the players. Near Red Hook, Brooklyn. Cool. It's crazy that it's almost 11:30 at night. And there's still tons of people outside. What's up, Abdullah? Thanks for joining us. In the distance, you could see 1 Manhattan West and 2 Manhattan West. Those are the 2 mega talls at Hudson Yards. Jonathan says the Garden will be buzzing tomorrow night. Yeah, we heard the Rangers are going to play. You obviously can't stream inside the event, right? Obviously. Because you need the rights to solicit the sporting content or whatever. Marketing videography, what's up? That's probably top 3 worst subway entrances in New York. A train, 8th Avenue. No bueno.
Oh, okay. All right, we good.
I think we got a few people coming out. What does this say? Playoffs 2024. Round 1, Game 2. How many games are there? How many games in a series for basketball? We'll walk around to the other side out of curiosity. Best of 7. Maybe I'll go to a game. You guys are getting me really curious about it. I'm assuming the Knicks have another home game. Maybe I'll go to it. Assuming the tickets aren't like $1,000. Since it's best of 7 in both basketball and hockey. Copy that. So we've now pretty much walked around the entire perimeter of Madison Square Garden. And this is the main entrance that the players usually go in and out of. You'll see it here in a moment. Yeah, Jonathan says grab some tickets. The AUS Fly Girl says try it. Mark Francis says they are extremely expensive. I'll try to look it up on Ticketmaster or whatnot. If that's where you get them still. What happened to the days when you could just walk up to the box office, right? On game day and purchase the tickets. Probably can't do that anymore, right? So right here is usually the entrance where you have a lot of the teams and the players go in. They usually go through here. Everybody, I think we will cut it loose here. I didn't realize we were already going for 2 hours, but the busy week kicks off really tomorrow. Today was Passover, so hopefully To anybody that celebrates Passover, hopefully you had a wonderful, happy Passover. To our Jewish listeners, so happy Passover, everybody, and we will be back here tomorrow at 8:30 or 9. So if you enjoyed the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you are new. We do these live streams every single day starting at 8:30 or 9. Thanks so much, and we will see you all.
Here comes the next rally, a great finale, another 3.